For today's episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Prashant Mahajan, the founder and CEO of Zeta.io, the platform allowing product teams to collaborate and manage their products. You may also have seen him in the list of 2024's top 25 AI executives in the software report. In the past 5 years alone, his career has seen him work in Indonesia, India, Japan, and San Francisco. Welcome to the show, Prashant.
Thanks a lot for having me here, Lauren. Glad to be part of it and excited to talk about product management, AI, and customer retention. So quite excited for this.
Me too. And actually, I'm super excited because you would have had so much experience from different countries, from different experiences. And I'm really excited to learn more about your view on the international market and how that affects customer feedback. But kind of taking it right back to the beginning, let's find out a little bit more about your background. So maybe tell us a little bit how you got to where you are today and what excites you about product and AI marketing.
So I actually started my career as a product manager in India, working in a fintech consumer product. And this is before the whole fintech revolution in India. So I was the first one building a product. It became very successful. Then I moved to Southeast Asia, where I started working on growth and marketing products, leveraging AI. So recommendation system, martech products, and got into the marketing and growth domain. And AI at that time, leveraging AI to better target people, have better metrics. Then I worked in a martech company, Branch.io. I moved to Bay Area. At that time, I got deeper and deeper into how marketing world works. What are the things which people care for? How are marketers as a persona? What do they care for? And my most of the time was spent with marketers, building for them. Then during pandemic, like many people, I got laid off. I did get a chance to work with a Japanese company as a product consultant. It's part of SoftBank Group. But at that time, I realized that product management, which I love and I have been doing, will have a revolution. Like AI will come and disrupt it. I just didn't want to wait outside. So I thought I'll take a leap of faith and be on the driver's seat and build an AI-powered product manager platform.
I love that. My favorite thing is you don't want to wait. You just took initiative. I absolutely love that. And that's also why you are where you are today. So just a quick question before we dive into a little bit more about Zeta and everything that you're building. Do you believe that AI is a product in itself, or do you think that's a tool that enables? What's your view on the whole thing?
Both, but inclined towards the latter, meaning AI is like internet or like some people have called it electricity. So it's going to be a product, but useless in itself. Like electricity in itself is useless unless and until it powers something else. So it's going to be a tool to power other things, which is going to change our world. And in future, like how we take electricity to be normal or internet to be normal, like everything will be connected on the internet, right? So AI is going to become that way that everything is going to be part of powered by AI.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I actually find that interesting because I feel like people who are developing AI models themselves, they view it in a different way. But then a lot of businesses, a lot of small businesses as well, are really powered by AI in a bunch of different ways. So it's an enabler in some ways, it's the core in other ways. It's interesting to see how it's coming to light. But getting to the topic of what we're here for today, obviously we're on the customer retention podcast. Everything is around the customer. And one of my favorite things about this show is we talk about a couple different things. Retention is not just one thing and one answer. There's so many different things that fall under that. There's customer experience, customer retention, acquisition, how that plays a role, and the customer happiness. There's so many different things that we've discussed. But one thing that I'm really excited to get into the depths of today is the value of customer feedback, because obviously whether you're a small business or a big business, everything around feedback is so crucial to either fixing something about the business, getting to the next step of a business. There's all these different things that it's around. So with Zeta, how did you identify customer needs and who were you targeting when you started to build this customer feedback platform?
So that's true, what you said. We hear this a lot that, hey, customers are the everything for a company. They're going to give you money. They're going to use your product. Without customers, no company is going to survive. And we know that your product should be shaped for customers. They should be targeted towards your customers, your marketing, your sales, everything. But what happens is as the company becomes bigger and bigger, the customers get further and further away. You are using iPhone or you are using taking a flight on United Airlines, but the mobile app you use to book that, the person who's building it doesn't know you. There's no connection. So it just gets further and further away. And I'm like, wait a second. And this is where I saw in my career that every company, even with smart people, is not able to talk to their customers. And I was like, this need to change. And I felt there's a big gap where what people want to do, which is have customers in their product development cycle, but they don't have it because of bureaucracy, due to operational challenges, due to the slowness it will bring to the cycle. They just avoid it. Like, how can we solve? So that's where the genesis of Veda happened, that can we help you build the right product faster and better? And I started talking to product managers that, hey, would you like to improve your product management process by talking to more customers, understanding what they want? And everyone was, yes, we would want to. And then it became a trend where 90% of the companies, and I'm talking about all the best product management companies in the world, like Google's and Meta's and all, they're like, yeah, we don't talk to customers. And I'm like, okay, this thing to solve. So I started reaching out to them on LinkedIn, on communities, on Product Hunt, on Twitter, that, hey, I'm doing this. And I just, because people had this problem, they came on call, they shared their experience. And that was how I reached out to users to give me feedback of their pain point. So that's how the journey started.
So cool. And actually, you use customer feedback to start building the platform itself. So that was incredible. And I think the hard thing is, and I like how you position it, of what tends to happen and kind of what builds up to that problem happening. But I guess, so one thing that I would always say, I think I found probably sound like a broken record for all my episodes at this point, but what I really want people to push, or I guess take away from this episode or all episodes, is something actionable that they can do with their own business or within their role at the time. And what you're saying sounds completely true and seems very factual, of the fact that companies don't really prioritize feedback that much. But if I'm an entrepreneur today, or if I'm in a certain department, I'm probably thinking to myself, how can I start to put feedback at the forefront, or how can I start to put that first? Obviously, the first answer is using Zeta, which is a great option to do that. But I guess, what kind of questions should a company or an entrepreneur or a small business be asking themselves to realize if they are utilizing customer feedback effectively?
Sure. That's a question I get asked a lot. There are two parts to it. One is capturing the feedback. That's the first part. Trust me, you'll be surprised. One, most of the companies don't capture customer voice. I'll call it customer voice and not feedback, because it could be a feature request, it could be a bug, it could be positive feedback, it could be a review. So when you say feedback, it just reduces the scope. So I'll say voice of customer, just to capture them. That, are they asking something? Are they complaining? Are they talking about a competition? Are they having a poor experience? I'll just say voice of customer. The first thing is they don't capture. Having tools in place to capture it is first. You can use Veda, but there are a bunch of tools out there which you can use. The second thing is, before this, you will see a lot of companies having that, 1 to 10 rating, or, hey, what would you like to have? And nothing is going to happen, because it's just captured in a Excel sheet or a CSV format. No one cares. And that's one thing where AI changes the game. Before this, ability to analyze data in different form, like I call recording, feedback, surveys, any other user research interview, was not possible. Now you are able to analyze unstructured data using AI on scale to figure out trends and themes. That's what Veda does. So second thing is analyzing data at scale, because if you're capturing data and not able to process it, it's useless. And the third thing is taking an action on it. Now, if I told you that, hey, this is the biggest complaint about iPhone, let's say, it does not have a audio jack. If you're able, then you take an action that, okay, we'll add a audio jack in it. So that ability to capture, process, and then take an action, that's the fundamental. Most companies fail at one or the other. On Veda, we allow you to do. The second thing which you asked, that what should be they be asking? Now, there are two parts to it. One is, do you want to build a product? Like Google could be asking that, hey, do you need a chat GPT like product or not? Or you are improving an existing product. So basically, does the product out there in the market and you're trying to improve it, or you're trying to launch a product? Because both will have different questions. Right? So when you are trying to launch a product in the market, your question will be around, do you have this pain point? Pain point could be going from unable to book a cab. Okay. Do you have smartphone? Yes or no? Would you prefer if you could book a cab from your phone? Yes. And then showing them a prototype link that, hey, this is what we are planning to launch. what are your thoughts? And then you come up with Uber. So that's a way to, when there's no market for it, there's no product out there. And you can also give a reference point. Would you like to have something like Airbnb, but for X? So these kind of questions you ask so that people have a reference point. They are able to validate the problem. At that time, you're not trying to validate the problem solution, but you're trying to validate the problem. That how severe is this problem? How much would you pay me for this problem?
Yeah.
So these are the questions which you ask to validate the problem that before starting to build a solution. Now, if you have a product already in the market, which is, let's say you have WhatsApp, then you start asking features that would you like to have a user story from the WhatsApp? Do you like the stories? Do you prefer version A or version B? Then you are trying to validate the solution that, hey, if you launch this, what will be the impact? So these are two different directions depending upon how you have. Do you have the product out in the market or you don't have? It changes a lot. So, and marketers play a big role because they know what is the goal. Is the goal to have adoption, which is a different problem, or is the problem to have number of users, new users? So new users or daily active users, which metric are you optimizing for? And depending upon that, your questions and language will change.
Okay. And I guess just a question on that, that's something that piqued my curiosity while you were explaining that, because it makes sense that they need to set up the areas to capture those pieces of feedback. And also the nature of customer feedback is that you're most likely going to get feedback that you absolutely weren't anticipating. Like I can say also from my own experience of building a product and putting it out into the market, you think you have everything figured out and then you definitely don't. So people will come in and say, why does the button not work that way? And you think, okay, I'd never even thought about that. But I guess I get a two-part question. I'll start with the first one, then I'll get to the next one. But when you are setting up these areas for feedback, are you trying to test for, is it more effective to test for a certain thing or leave it as completely open field feedback and just see what people say about the business or the product or the service? Like, what do you think is a better approach with feedback?
Initially, open-ended, because you don't want to have your biasness towards, but I see this a lot that people take things on extreme. At one point, you have to narrow it down that, hey, okay, you started with open-ended. You were able to capture this 1,000 input. Now out of 1,000, you're able to see 10 different trends. Now you are asking more specific questions to validate or invalidate the particular hypothesis. Then you ask a further narrow down question. So start more broad. It's like a funnel, marketing funnel. You start broad and then all the way to bottom of the funnel, you have specific questions, more actionable, and you're trying to come to a conclusion. For example, you start with that, hey, how much would you pay for this chat GPT service? How much should you think it is worth per month? You don't want to give a reference point at that time. You can say, people say $50, $10, $100. You want to see. Now, once you have figured out, most people are saying anywhere between $50 to $100. You're saying that if 50 too high, is 75, and then you are asking specific questions. So that's a way to go for it.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Like you go generally and then you start to hypothesize from there.
Yeah.
And then I guess that falls into my next question, which is, let's say you have a company that they, even using something like Zeta, they get all the customer feedback and it informs what they should be focusing on. But at the end of the day, you still are getting so many different key data points. So one customer talks about the customer service, and then the other customer talks about how the platform should be operating like this instead of that. How do you go about prioritizing what you should focus on to implement customer feedback? Because the other thing that I would say, even as a consumer from my end, I've given feedback to a company and I see them implement other things, but I realize they probably got more requests for the X feature, which is what I request a Y feature. But as a company, if you're trying to commit to being customer first and putting that feedback in front of people, how do you prioritize how to go about, and it doesn't even have to be features, like let's say you have a product business, but how do you prioritize certain things one over the other? Because you can't do everything at once.
I think I'll add to there are 2 points. One thing you very good mentioned, Lauren, that a lot of time you can't do all. You have to pick your battles. But the problem is people don't communicate that why they're picking one and not the other. Now, you gave a feedback about, like you said, something related to sign-up flow. But you see that that's not getting fixed and the company launches a new billing option. And you're like, maybe they're getting too many requests. But they should tell this to you that, hey, due to not enough data point, we are not able to build this up. For now, we have kept it in the backlog. Most of the time, if you see in the companies, feedback is one way. They just ask you to give feedback and then you never hear it back that something happened or that.
That's so true.
That's one thing which we are changing with Veda. You are able to tell back that, hey, this is the status. If you're doing it, why you are great. If you're not doing it, why you are not doing it. And the person is kept informed because you understand that not everything can be done. So what can be done and why it is not being. So that's the first thing I want to clarify. That itself improves the customer retention a lot. So if the second thing is what can be done. Now, how do you prioritize? In order to prioritize, you have to look at different companies operate differently. For example, what is the company's objective? People might be asking for improving the help in documents, but companies' priority is to launch GDPR compliance in the next quarter. So automatically, what is the company's priority? If the priority is to enter the Europe market for next quarter, you cannot prioritize help document. So I'm just giving an example that how you will have to see what is company's objective and strategy. Second thing is, even on our platform, we provide custom prioritization framework because some companies want to prioritize on the frequency that, hey, if we are getting so many number of feedback, we'll work on it.
Mhm.
In some cases, companies don't care about it. They care about the revenue. That if one enterprise customers or 5 enterprise customers ask for something, they'll prioritize that versus 1,000 small companies asking for something. So that's another. You are trying to optimize for money. Third is there are certain products which are more important just by nature of it. We were working with a fintech company very big, and they clearly said that they want to highlight any security or legal request first, because if they are not legally compliant to work in a particular country, even if it's a one request,
It's the matter of
it
their
becomes
results.
it becomes very critical. So they're like, that's something which we want as the first thing. So depending upon your company, if you're in health tech, fintech, or whatever, security breach could be a bigger thing than anything else. So that's the third. Now, finally, what it comes down to is human. As I said earlier, the first problem was you're not able to have that visualization of what are people asking for. So you cannot prioritize. Now what we're doing is we are giving that whole data presented in a consumable form to you. Eventually, you have to take a decision because it requires multiple consideration, your resources, your bandwidth, your dependencies, your business goals, your product roadmap, all those things to prioritize. But at least you should have a picture. So first, depending upon company, domain, product, culture, and then finally, you removed multiple things from the plate. Now there are very few things left on the plate. I'll request to do a meeting and prioritize. That's it. Don't let machine do it for you.
Yeah. I really like that because I think it's not a one size fits all for how you should be taking feedback and how you should be prioritizing that. And I really like that because I feel that even myself, I'm thinking about it right now, but the people listening to this podcast will think, which approach do I want to be taking or which one is the best for me? So all of them can jump on the data platform as well and be able to use it. But I really like that approach because the customer experience is not a one size fits all. So the way that you approach feedback should not be the same way. And I like it that it depends on where you're at, where you're prioritizing, how you're going about building the next stages of your company, because feedback actually is every single part of that process. So I really, really like that. I think it brings it all together really well of what you said over the episode. Now, before I let you go, we have one little extra section that I love. It's called the lightning round. So the lightning round is basically just a couple quick questions, and then we always end on a piece of advice before we head out for the day. So the first lightning round question I have for you is, what film do you think has some of the best marketing of all time?
Which film?
Yeah, the hard question.
I think Godfather. I mean, just because even after it was not marketed that well, but it became a cult classic where
Fair enough.
even now you think about that movie and you're like, oh, it's a masterpiece. I feel it's a masterpiece, at least the first part. And I don't know what the marketing at that time was. In my current memory of movies, I think Avengers and recently Barbie did the great job. Like,
yeah, that's
Barbie set a new record for how movies can be marketed, where they had collaboration with shoes, food stores, Airbnb, anything imaginable. And that's a masterclass in itself.
Yeah.
If I think about very latest, and you could see that people are wearing clothes and going to cinema just to watch it.
Yep.
So Avengers, Endgame, and Barbie, these two.
Okay, cool. I also very much the first thought that came to my head was actually superhero movies, because like anything Marvel or like superhero related or whatever it might be, people are so like caught up in the brand. Like there was one episode that I did that was a fight between DC and Marvel, and I mentioned one or the other, and they were like, "You gotta make sure you don't mention that one because this superhero is not in that series." So I was like, it's so funny how people are so well aligned with those and they put it on their personal identity. So I do like that. Okay, second question: if you had to market a fast food chain, what would you choose and how would you market them?
I think if I have to think about a recent personal experience, I would pick a coffee shop, let's say
Okay.
Starbucks or something. And instead of marketing it as, you come there and work, I would make it market it as a place to hang out and meet new people. With the whole loneliness pandemic in USA, I have been reading the report where people are not able to make friends and, they're stuck inside on digital screens. I'll just change the positioning of Starbucks from a place to grab a coffee to meet new people, so that it becomes a community forum where people are able to meet their local people, their community, find dates, find business ideas. And yeah, I think that would be a great way.
I think you should travel here on over to Canada, because that actually, there's obviously not for every single location, but Tim Hortons actually does a really good
Yeah.
job of where it's very much, it's been a brand for a while that you grab a coffee, maybe a Timbit or a donut or something like that, and you sit down and have a nice conversation. Like it was known as like a meeting place and just to hang out and have a nice coffee. So maybe that's on your radar for the next one. Okay, last lightning round question before we get to the advice. If you were stuck on a desert island, who in the marketing world would you want to be stuck there with, and what item would you take with you? Wow, you're really getting all the hard questions today.
Dead or alive?
I'm going to say either.
Steve Jobs.
I assume when you said dead or alive, you were going to say Steve Jobs.
I mean, come on. He knew how to storytell. He knew how to.
Yep.
He was a product person who could position his product so well that you want it. And every keynote presentation, there are books written on his storytelling, his presentation, his messaging. Just removing things from the text
Yep.
to convey better meaning is just amazing. Yeah.
Love that.
And I'll
Okay.
take, you said I need to take something, I'll probably take an iPad.
You better, I mean, if we're going with Steve Jobs, you better be taking one of his products.
Apple, exactly.
I think that's a good idea. Okay. And last but not least, what was a piece of advice, marketing or life advice, that someone shared with you once that has always stayed with you?
I think very generic, but the life advice which anyone asks me this, I have this on top of my mind, which is remember where you came from, where you are, and where you want to go. This can be applied to companies too, but from a life advice, I feel that's very important. Just to have a guiding principle that, hey, this is where I want to go. And you'll be surprised that most of the marketing which happens, you like it or not, is targeted towards people who don't know what to do, and they're just, trying to sell them something or give them false pleasure that, hey, you'll be getting this just because they're bored, they don't know what to do. So I think more ethical way would be helping people know where they are, where they came from, where they want to go.
I really like that. And such a beautiful bow to put on the end of our episode here, because I think it's also a nice reminder, like whenever I listen to podcasts or even when I get to meet all these wonderful guests on these episodes, it's a reminder that there's so much to work on. There's always something you can be doing to fix it, always something to be learning. But it's nice to remember where you came from, where you are at the moment, how far you've come from that point, but still there's so much farther to go. So I really appreciate that. I resonate with it. And thank you so much for joining me on the episode today. It was a pleasure to have you. And if anyone is thinking about joining Zeta, I'm sure they can reach out to you either directly on LinkedIn or just sign up for the platform. But I think your platform will help a lot of businesses. So I'm looking forward to people learning more about your platform.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. It was a pleasure talking to you. And hopefully people would work harder towards listening to customers and retaining them.
Absolutely.